to Voices in the Six. I'm Amanda, and I'm your lovely host. If you're new here, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. It's great to see you again. Today's episode is called Speaks T.O, where we're diving into how women experience the city of Toronto, specifically the Yorkville and the Bay Street area. Today I'm joined by two fantastic guests who kindly joined us to share their fieldwork about this topic, Armida and Jackie.
Hi, I'm excited to share this with you.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. This topic is really important to us.
All right, let's kick things off with safety, which honestly is one of the biggest concerns for women in the urban area. Let's start off with Jackie to put you on the spot. So, what came up in your fieldwork?
Yeah, so safety was a reoccurring theme. Bridget, who recently moved here from Montreal, said she felt safer back home since there was more open space, whereas in Toronto, she said that it was more closed off because of the high rises. And honestly, how many more do we need?
Yeah, I see. It's almost like the physical environment itself can feel restrictive and create this disconnect between person to person, right?
Yeah, it really does. Based on what Matcha noticed about Bay Street, she felt uncomfortable during the nighttime because there are, as she said, unsavory people. But when she's closer to home and more familiar with her surroundings, she felt more safer.
That makes sense. I think it's important you actually said that because just even having a sense of familiarity can just naturally make people feel more comfortable, even if it's in a public space. Did anything else come up?
Yeah, Emily and Mindy, as daily commuters, said they're always hyper aware of who's around them at bus stops or on transit. Like Emily, who experienced harassment on the TTC. Zach also pointed out that bus stops often feel unsafe because they are poorly maintained and cornering can happen easily.
Yeah, I personally never stand inside like a bus stop unless I really have to, if the weather's bad or it's cold. And it's kind of frustrating how these particular design choices make such a difference in comfortability. Armida, did your group end up discussing safety as well?
Yeah, definitely. One of our interlocutors, Alia, she said that Yorkville used to feel safer a few years ago, but it's definitely become more intimidating, even during the day, actually. And Xavier did share that while he mostly drives, he generally feels okay using the TTC himself. However, his wife has had some awful experiences on TTC that are different to his.
Okay, that actually takes me to our next topic, which is commuting. So let's start with Jackie again. Did your group have any thoughts here on commuting?
Totally. Emily and Mindy said that they felt more at ease in crowded stations, but still there was always, they always still watched for their surroundings. Matcha also said her discomfort in public places shifts depending on how important she is with the area. Overall, understanding the space itself is very important.
Yeah, no, that definitely resonates. Armida, what about your group?
Yeah, so Tiana and Jessica both agreed that the GO feels safer than the TTC in general. However, they did mention being a little bit more on guard in Toronto in the city just as a whole. And Nadia also said that while she does feel a little bit on edge in Yorkville, she finds it far better than busier downtown areas of the downtown core, such as Yonge-Dundas.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really interesting to reflect on how these different types of transit systems can feel safer than others, like even within the same city. Was there anything that stuck out to you guys during this particular interview?
Honestly, I think the role of gender is something that really stuck out to me. For example, Nadia and other women that we talked to said that they often feel the need to strategize their commute to avoid potentially dangerous interactions. And that is something that really stuck with me being a woman. I'm sure this is definitely something I resonated with in terms of commuting, and I'm sure that Jackie, you can agree?
I do agree. Yeah, I always myself have to be hyper aware of my surroundings, like not make eye contact to the wrong person or not give attention to catcalling, like because it can cause potential negative outcomes. So yeah, it's difficult being a woman.
Yeah. I think as women, we've all been in like situations like this where whether we're in public or taking transit, in my opinion, transit doesn't make itself out to be a belonging space where women specifically can feel safe and comfortable. What do you guys think? Do women feel welcomed in these spaces?
Well, from my group, it was a mix of opinions. Bridget said the towering architecture in Toronto makes her feel like an outsider, almost like the city wasn't built for someone like her. But Matcha had a different take. She feels a sense of belonging in her neighborhood because of it's quieter and more community-based.
That's a really interesting contrast that these two interviewers made, especially since they're both women. What do you think creates that sense of community that Matcha feels?
Yeah, I think I asked her that, and Matcha mentioned things like noticing familiar faces daily, around places such as like cafes, commuting, or she would notice people saying hi to each other. Those small everyday interactions make her feel grounded.
You know, that makes sense. And I really like that point. I can see why she felt so comfortable in that space. And I think familiarity in everyday interactions can just make a neighborhood feel so much more welcoming. Armida, did anyone express anything different about like either feeling included or isolated?
Well, yeah, actually, Alia talked about how Yorkville's upscale vibe can feel definitely a lot more exclusive. Like, it's meant for a very specific kind of person.
Yeah.
And she described it as a sort of look but don't touch environment. However, Tiana and Jessica, they also mentioned that fashion plays a role in the way that they walk around, and the way that you present yourself externally is particularly important in Yorkville. Especially for women, that is something that really weighs on their mind. And on the flip side, however, Nadia said that she feels more welcomed in Yorkville compared to other areas like the downtown area because it's less chaotic and people seem less rushed, as if the design of the main street in Unionville was meant to have people strolling by.
Yeah, like, no, I actually do agree with Nadia in that sense, that the pace of a specific area can make a huge difference in a person's comfortability, like go, go, go versus staying and relaxing. I know I personally feel so overwhelmed and stressed out downtown because it can get so busy so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like about the way that those spaces signal who they're for in a way almost. Xavier mentioned that the design of some areas in the overall city can make you feel like you're being watched constantly, which does create that sense of unease. And that directly impacts senses of belonging because if you don't feel comfortable, then where do you belong?
Yes. So I love that point, but let's dive into your experiences with actually going out into the field and conducting on-hand research.
Yes.
What were some challenges you guys faced for whoever wants to share first?
Yeah, so actually code switching was a big one for me in terms of who we approached. I definitely noticed myself adjusting my tone and my demeanor to kind of fit with the person that we were talking to or approaching. And on top of that, there was also this journey of finding like a way to adjust and approach a person in the correct way and that would be acceptable and accessible to them, because the topic of urban designs and cityscapes can often feel a little bit intimidating when you approach it.
Yeah.
That's something I noticed.
Yeah, and also finding willing participants was tricky. People were either too busy or we felt unsure or they felt unsure about opening up to us. So.
Yeah, no, I can see how people would have been racing past you guys in such a busy area like that. It must have been a little intimidating for you guys. Who did you guys end up actually talking to? Was there like a certain demographic that you guys were going for?
Yeah, so luckily we did end up talking to a lot of diverse people, but however, just being a women-only group, we definitely gravitated at first towards speaking to women, and when we noticed that, we had to make that conscious effort and that shift to include those diverse perspectives because we want to hear from everyone and be able to compare things. So this, to me, really highlighted also how our identities can shape our fieldwork in general.
Yes, I love that. Oh, okay guys, I'm seeing my cameraman giving me the old wrap it up signal, so I'm afraid we're gonna have to close it off here. This was such an insightful conversation, and I appreciate you both for coming onto the show. I want us all to think about this. How can the city better support women in these spaces? And actually, do you guys have any thoughts to share about this?
Actually, so I think the root of it is really just design. So bus stops, for example, need to be more open and less cornered. And honestly, transit systems need to be designed with better safety measures.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really important question for everyone to consider, everyone watching as well. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And on top of that, beyond infrastructure, I think it's obvious that we need policies in place that can prioritize women's voices in urban planning.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, guys, thank you to Jackie and Armida, and thank you to our listeners for joining us on Voices in the Six. Don't forget to think about how your own city spaces impact your sense of safety and belonging. Next week, don't forget to tune in for a special episode as we're going to be discussing the theme of class in the city with special guest speakers Drake and The Weeknd. Don't know how we got them, but bye everybody. Thank you.